Welcome to Wings of Change. My
Hi.
name is Georgette Thomas, and I welcome you today. Um, a magnificent human being, person, and gentleman, John Woodsy Humes, who is a writer and a poet, and he is thinking about doing a podcast of his own. So, John, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, it's nice to have you. Can you let everybody know where you are at this moment, where John Hume lives?
Yeah, I live, um, if you can get ready for this, I live in a place called Llanfairpwllgwyngyllgogery, which is a little village in North Wales in the UK. And
And you just
basically,
moved there
yeah,
not too long ago.
yeah, been here, been in the village for about a couple of years now. And then just recently, a few months ago, bought a place just further up the road, just a little bit further into the village.
It's
So I'm kind
beautiful.
of like gradually kind of like moving my way more and more into the feel and the vibe of the village, I guess. And it's a
Sure.
little place between the shoreline on one side and the mountains on the other. So
Love it.
it's somewhere that I can just like wander either up in the hills or on the beach.
Oh, location is perfect.
So perfect location in that sense. Yeah.
So where did you come from, John?
I was born in Merseyside. My parents were both from Liverpool. So
So I have a question for you. I follow your blog. We follow each other's blog, and I love your writing and your poetry, Carly and Joe, a lot of the things that you put on your blog. And I cannot wait to see what you do with your podcast. But um, how would you describe what style of poetry? Would you consider it more of like a poetry prose or a free verse? How would you describe it? I tend to call it like a poetic writing, and I know recently some of your poems and in your writing has been very personal, to more of a personal, intimate, authentic level, which by the way I love. And with my clients as a life coach, I teach that therapeutic art
uh,
in creative writing to get what I call shadow writing or soul writing, to bring the emotions and put them on a page and use it as a form of journaling. So, what style writing, or is it all of the above? Would you say you do?
that's an interesting one. I think like a lot of writers, I kind of found I was for a long time, for quite a few years, I wasn't sure for a while if I was a writer or not. I kind of sometimes I
Mm,
loved doing it, sometimes I hated doing it. Other people kind of saw it as something that I did, and it was much more something that other people. Oh yeah, well that with you, John, that's your writing. Of course, John, but you're a writer, and I thought. It's really awesome that all you guys see this, but I'm not sure yet whether I am, and I was never sure.
right.
Sometimes I loved it, sometimes I hated it, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do as a writer. And I know that certainly with things like poetry, a lot of people had set ideas about what they considered to be poetry.
Yep.
About, does it have a kind of certain structure? Is it a certain way of writing? With
Yep.
some people, they didn't get poetry that didn't rhyme or that didn't have a particular meter or a particular
Yes.
style.
Like the poetry has to rhyme. I hear this
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
And I tell them no,
yeah,
or it has to be like Shakespearean, or
yeah.
yeah,
And sometimes actually you can be so focused on trying to do that when actually, if you just wrote the words that you wanted to say,
here,
they were like,
here, I
yeah,
agree.
that's awesome there. What you just wanted to say right there, and that's in a way where I kind of started to realize that what worked for me, what worked as a kind of writer is when I just actually just kind of let it spill. And occasionally I would see something and I think, yeah, that's what I want to say. It might not be necessarily list in bullet points. I want to say that, and that. It's just this somehow has the feel of what I want to get across. And to be
Yes.
honest, most of the time, that's it. I mean, how often do people come away from a movie and go, yes, I remember every aspect of the plot, and it was all about, and this scene and led to that, and it was about that and that. Or how often do they come away thinking, it just had a feel about it? I came out of the cinema and I thought, yeah, that just made me feel good. And it
Yeah.
was like,
Great movie. Great
and it was
movie.
like
Yeah.
that. And that's the thing with like often with movies, books, poems,
Hmm.
it's not that you necessarily remember and go for every line. It's like, it just had a feel that made me go, yeah, that was cool. And that was what I realized was what I really wanted to do and feel. Sometimes I've worked with people who are kind of like just starting out with the writing, and they're kind of thinking, I want to say this for my work and I want to say that. And when we're working, there'll be lots of stuff that obviously, because they're kind of new to it and they're excited and they want to get this out, it will be on the lines that they'll throw in will be very kind of, I don't want to make this point, I don't want to make that point. And I'll be trying best I can to kind of like loosen it up a bit. Because actually, when you try to say this, that, and the other in your pieces, it quite often it doesn't come across. It comes
Yes.
over like a lecture or whatever. But what really works is when you just say, this is what I'm writing today, and this
Yes.
is how it feels. And you'll get that out, and then suddenly you'll think, actually, that really works because I didn't realize it, but it's saying this or that or the other. And people will get that when they read that, they'll get, wow, that really said something to me about this or that. But it only really worked because you weren't trying to make a point. You were trying to actually just
Mm.
express. And
Yes.
that was the cool thing. So because of that, and because I kind of liked, I wrote poetic stuff. And quite often I wrote it because I listened to a lot of music and I liked kind of write. I, I,
Mm.
I couldn't write music, but I grew up listening to a lot of song lyrics. So I always liked singer-songwriters. So I would write kind of stuff that kind of had that kind of vibe. And sometimes I liked writing stories. And then I found when my writing generally found its voice and it found that kind of like loose kind of, I wanted to do the two together. And
Right.
so I started to just write writing really. And that was the thing. I just kind of like wrote stuff. And sometimes I would think that works. That's kind of like a story. And then because I wrote it in a certain way, or maybe because it had a structure, like sometimes I write in paragraphs if I'm writing a story. Sometimes I'll write a story, but I'll lay it out like a poem and
Right.
I'll mess around with the way and sometimes people will read a story and they'll say, oh, that was an interesting poem because they read it as like a poem because of the structure.
Yes.
And sometimes people won't be sure if it's a poem or a story that I wrote. And well, it was kind of a bit of both. And I
Right.
remember I went up,
Like a free verse or a poetic prose.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I went,
And I've taken like,
yeah,
things and I've made them from my writing or, from my poetic story. And I've taken it out and then capitalized on more of a poetic, just with a
yeah,
piece of what I had. And then, and then opened it up to, a
yeah,
whole other, poem.
yeah,
So, I love doing
yeah.
that too, just taking a
It's
piece
really
out.
cool to be able to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
that's
ahead.
really cool. No, that's really
Yeah,
cool when you go, I'll take this
yeah,
bit and I'll go there with it.
yes,
And that's the thing
yes.
that you can
Because
do
it
that.
sticks out, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay, maybe, this would be good because being a life coach and on my agenda is to put things out there that people can, resonate with.